Hey, everybody. Okay, we're letting them all in. Miss Jen is here, our wonderful rep. We so love her.
Hey friends, good to see you.
Jen, I get more compliments on the public funds or public money for public schools or public funds for public schools. And I'm always like, I'll send one to you if you want. I did not find it myself.
What is
I
this?
love
Is this
that.
the
The green one?
Yeah, it's a green shirt that Jen had on at one of our events. And I was like, I must buy that shirt. I like
It's
wear
from
it. I wear it to all events with kids that with people from like Great Hearts parents.
love that. Yeah, it's from Ray Gun. They do like all those.
Yeah, they're in all of like every shirt is so controversial. I love it in the best way possible.
Love that.
Let's preface, we are not against private schools at all.
No, thanks. Thanks, Shay.
Put that out there. Everyone has that choice. Um, okay, we're going to give just a moment here. While we have people joining on, I'd love to see a show of hands. I'll put it on gallery view for myself, but I want to see a show of hands. Is this the first Zoom for you guys? Do we have a majority of people who've been on a bunch, or got a few newbies? Welcome. We're so happy to have you. We assume you're big public school supporters, and maybe that's why you're joining on for the first time. Grateful. Well, we're gonna jump in with Mike Sharkey, get going, because Mike is actually it's working full time, as he has always been.
I have a job.
You have a job. So
You mean running for school board wasn't a full-time job?
That's my recreation. You know that, Rebecca.
Yeah, that's a unpaid volunteer effort.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do a quick intro for those of you who don't know Mike. I got to know him quite well over the last year of supporting him as the treasurer for his school board campaign for Scottsdale Unified School District. And I'm very proud to say he won. And I'd never been part of a board before, or like a school board campaign or a campaign actually of any sort. So it shows that you can find a place that you can give your talent. So if anybody ever wants, I'm always pushing to like find other friends like me that want to give in some way that they don't think they have the wherewithal. Jennifer and Shay will always catch you up on all like the background of history of Arizona things that you need to know. So Mike has two daughters that are recent graduates. They're both from college, I will say. They all went through the SUSD schools. So they were both at Cochise, Cocopah, and Chaparral. He has a BA from Lafayette. He has his master's from U of A, and he is now director or executive director of data analytics at ASU. So he loves numbers, even probably more so than me. And prior to that, he was an entrepreneur as well. He did a predictive analytics company that he sold when he was a few years ago. And right now he's still he is the mentor for the Chaparral robotics team, which just is like my favorite thing about him, because my son is a robotics nerd and just thinks Mike is like the coolest thing since sliced bread. So
He is.
He's just an incredible person, and we're really lucky to have him on the school board in whatever capacity. And so I'll let you take it from here, Mike.
Sure. Thanks for that, Rebecca. And like this is all new to me. I've never run for anything before. So I made the decision a year ago to run for school board, and there are many people on this Zoom right now who were instrumental in helping. And so thank you. I mean, the Shay, Jennifer, Rebecca, like we're absolutely like there's no way of doing it without them. And then other people I see on here were just awesome in giving their time and effort into this. So thanks to everyone. And that's kind of like my message here. So I ran for school board because I am just a big believer in public education. I've been in Scottsdale for 25 years. I think that public schools are the heart of our community. And I kind of, even though my kids had graduated, I kind of felt there was some sort of competition and stray from that theme. And I'm like, I don't want that to change. I want to make sure that I can do what I can do. So I ran. And you know, Jen, you joked, the zero pay job that I have of being on the school board. I got my pay already. The thanks I get from teachers, like when I see them at meetings, when I see them in person, and like thanking me for just bringing what I bring to the table, that's my pay for it. And so it's been really interesting for me. This was never on my bingo card. I have zero political aspirations, despite people, including people on this Zoom, who were like, "Oh, now that you did this, you can run for that." And I'm like, "Shut your mouth." This has been about the schools, but I know that I had to run for public office in order to do that. And so it's been a really great experience. People ask me, now that you've been through it, would you do it again, or was it what you expected? It was definitely within the bounds of what I expected. The positives, the negatives. I didn't get anything like totally weird and crazy. I'm like, I know there are people out there that are, maybe a little bit far off on this edge or that edge. And that was okay, and dealt with it. But knowing that I'm bringing my experience, I've worked in higher education for 25 years, bringing my technology, financial, organizational experience to try and help our schools. That's awesome. Like, I'm loving it, right? I got a full-time job. I'm at work at ASU right now. I got a meeting later today for something. I had a board meeting next week. I got a meeting with the superintendent the day after that. That's okay. I'll kind of work it into my schedule, but I really feel like, the benefit I'm bringing and giving back to my community has been worth it.
Love it. Well, we do have to speak of the fact that, believe it or not, we'll have another election coming up fairly soon. Like a little less than 2 years, we're looking at another election. And have you had any friends get interested in wanting to come alongside you, Mike? Not yet.
No one's quite there yet.
Not yet.
I do speak positive about it. We look at the political environment of what happened this past election. The reason we won, and I'll say this as individually as myself, is because of the experience that we were experienced educational professionals. And that's been great. And so, having people that not only want to give, but have something relevant has been great. And so, definitely keep our ears open for that. And I'm all for it. So it's very interesting. This is not like, oh crud, I won, how long till my 4 years is up? Not at all. This has really been a positive thing for me.
Wow. Love it. Love it. I know you have to head off pretty soon. You're on your lunch break, kind of squeezing us in here. Jennifer, do you have any other questions for him? Or are we good?
Oh, no. I think I've wasted enough of Mike's time the last.
Happy to answer questions if people have anything for me while I'm here, please.
Does anyone have
This is
anything
valuable.
specific that they'd like to ask Mike?
Drop it in the chat if you guys want to. Otherwise, I think while you're thinking about to Shay's point, start thinking in your communities about who in your communities might be interested in a role like this. I mean, as you can see, he didn't have previous experience doing it, but is totally qualified to do it. So that's
There's lots of different backgrounds and careers that can add something, if it's someone not in education, but in finance, or, there's lots of different skill sets that can be used on the board. So it is our job, all of us on here, to start planting those seeds. And we have to start doing that now because we have to give time for those seeds to germinate. So this is the time to start planting those seeds. And also anybody that's interested in working on the campaign, I can't guarantee that our full team is going to be working on this campaign in the next year. We all have different little projects we're working on, different campaigns we're working on. So if you have interest in working on a campaign with us or others, let us know. If you're not in Scottsdale, that's okay. We'll connect you to someone in your district. So
yeah, I talked to somebody who's running for a board on the west side of the valley for 2 hours just this last week with some campaign tips and stuff to start helping them. So it doesn't have to be Scottsdale specific. Anybody that knows somebody that might be interested in running or wants to help with the campaign, please feel free to connect them with us. We are happy to help and share what we know, what we've learned, so that we can get all of our school districts in a safe board majority of sane, data analytical, fact-based decision-making, best for kids kind of boards.
Never heard of anybody like that. No idea what you're talking about.
No, yeah, not you. Not
And,
you.
and just kudos to you guys. Like again, this is my first campaign I was involved with, but the separation of duties, the what people brought to the table, connection wise, financially, creatively, like these guys put together a great team. I came to this, when I thought about running, I talked to someone who ran a few years ago and said, "Hey, I know you didn't win, but I'm thinking of running. Can I, meet up and like pick your brain on it?" And she kind of connected me with some of the folks in here. So that's how I got the connection. And I look back and I'm like, if I was doing this on my own, if I was just like a single guy, just like running on my own for position, totally different. And so having people that contribute in different ways, awesome.
have a team.
I'm just so thankful.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. And I will say that if you get the newsletters, which now you all will be getting the newsletters because you've registered. And so in the newsletters, we do include the days and times of the school board meetings. We would love more people to show up to school board meetings. Absolutely. That makes a huge difference. And it's the district needs it and the school board members need it. And it's important to stay informed. They are also recorded. So if you guys want the recordings, easy to Google SUSD board meetings recordings, you can find them. So thank you so much, Mike. We appreciate your time.
Great. Thanks,
now,
everyone. Take care.
Now we get to have our next guest. Jennifer, do you want to introduce?
Well, I feel like I'm surrounded by math people everywhere I look. So maybe Rebecca has to go away because that's just too much math. So I just have to be completely honest here. When Christine Marsh lost her bid for reelection in LD4, through the devastation, I had this hope. I was like, oh, well, she's going to run for superintendent of the state of Arizona. So then when I heard that this person was running, I was like, well, who is this? Until I read everything about you and Googled you, and I realized that there was another person who was eminently qualified and absolutely perfect for this job. So I'd like for everyone to meet Dr. Teresa Leyba Ruiz. And I'm not sure, Sherry, there you go. You put her up on the screen there. Quickly, because you can't possibly go through all of the math accolades and everything else here, but Teresa is a third generation Arizonan. She started off teaching. She's the first person in her family to go to college. Whoop, whoop. She started off teaching in 7th grade. Is that right? You went up through high school, started teaching community college, has her PhD, was the president of Glendale Community College, was the president of the board of Chamber of Commerce of Glendale. It just goes on and on and on. And the juxtaposition between you and who will most likely be your opponent unless he dies is Tom Horn. And it is just shocking. And I'm already grateful. I haven't even met you. And thank you for running and doing this. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that. That's a great introduction. And thank you to Shay for having me and for all the women that are here today who are invested in this fight. And that's really what this is. We're truly facing a fight for the future of our schools. And we find ourselves in the worst case scenario possible. With the announcement of the dismantling of the Department of Education, Tom Horn has said he's going to throw a party. Can you imagine? Instead of asking questions about our most vulnerable or being concerned about our most vulnerable students and how they'll be impacted, he wants to have a party. He's rejoicing.
And it really signifies like the importance that the superintendent is going to have in a way that has never existed before. If the state ends up having so much more authority over services and how funds are used and everything else, because all of that has been given back to the states, this role is vital. And I mean, it's incredible.
I agree. It's a critical role now more than ever. I mean, when you realize that Arizona receives about $1 billion in federal funding. And right now, the majority of that is set aside for Title I schools and students with special needs and, children from rural and tribal communities. That's a lot of money going to schools that really need it. And if
Absolutely. I think the other thing that struck me about, especially your experience background, is that you started off in the traditional K-12 schools and moved your way all the way up through community college. You yourself went on to get your PhD. So you understand sort of the importance and kind of all the different facets of education in Arizona, soup to nuts. Like you've kind of been there, done that yourself, and then through your career.
Right.
What do you think? How will that translate into how you will function as superintendent of Arizona?
Well, I know that, public education, covers the gamut from rural schools in rural Arizona to urban. And even within urban, there's wide disparities. But in all cases, we need to support our educators that are making the commitment to the students each and every day. We need a leader who's going to advocate and stand up for our students, stand up for our teachers and our staff, and not somebody who's going to be advocating and promoting, vouchers, and spending millions and millions of dollars promoting something that is having a detrimental effect on our public schools. And I see this role as an opportunity to do just that, to listen and learn and provide resources as they're needed, to understand that, I'm a product of the Roosevelt School District. We didn't have a lot, but the people that are there are dedicated and committed, and there's brilliance in our students everywhere across our state. We need to make sure that every single child has access to a high quality education, that our teachers and educators are supported, and that we're not siphoning money off here and there and being willy-nilly about it. Now, I commit to being, with fidelity, following the law, but also ensuring that our students, our most needy students, are getting the resources that they need.
Yeah. I will say, when I got here back in 2017, I didn't know anyone in politics. And of course, now majority of my friends actually still are not savvy on politics and know, I think a lot of them don't even know who their state senator is and who she was. But who they did know is Horn. People have a lot of less informed people do know about Horn and his long history of awfulness. I don't know even know what this
Six violations, hit and runs.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, where should I start?
I mean, it's insane. It is absolutely insane. So,
I know that you're already beginning to collect signatures, Teresa.
Yes, we are. We are busy. We have both electronic through the eQual, and I have people who are so supportive and are out collecting signatures. But we need more because, to be quite honest, I've never run a political race, much like our previous guy. I'm not a politician. I'm an educator, and while I don't have name recognition, I never have backed down from a challenge, and I've never backed down from a bully. And so we are gathering signatures. I need lots more support. We need to collect enough signatures to put me on the ballot. Right now, that's at about 7,000 signatures. We're collecting them both through eQual and on paper and pencil.
We will be sure to put the eQual link and kind of instructions for those who haven't used that format before so that we can start that process and hopefully get our group to
we'll put it in our newsletter, and then at our happy hour, we'll make sure we have some of your petitions at our happy hour. And if you want to leave some with us, we can help to gather signatures for you.
Oh, I appreciate that. And, not only do we need to collect the signatures, but we know that Tom Horn in the last race, when he beat Kathy Hoffman, he ran over $1 million race, and 700,000 of that was self-funded.
Wow.
I think that's significant. And I'm not running clean because there's no way I could beat Tom Horn on a clean election. And so it's going to take all of us. This isn't just me, Terry. I never ever was running for this role on my radar. Never ever. But what we find ourselves is the times right now are so extreme that we just can't sit silent. And I decided I needed to use my experience, my dedication, my commitment to public schools and put it to good use. I
Can
saw a
you
question.
clarify what running clean is? Because for some people, when someone says, I'm not going to run clean, it sounds like you're going to play dirty. And like, can we clarify what that means to run a clean election?
So running clean is the state of Arizona's way to both provide resources, but also cap the amount of money that you can spend on your campaign. So if I were to run clean, I would be capped at roughly $300,000. It's a process of collecting a series of $5 donations, and once you've collected enough $5 donations, and that qualifies you to have access to a portion of that clean money prior to a primary, and then after, if you win the primary, then you get access to a little bit more. But in total, it's about $300,000. And quite honestly, that's just not even
Oh,
close.
our school board race was
Yes.
upwards of 400,000 between all the candidates, about 400,000.
I was going to say, I think until this was the first campaign I had worked on, and my mind was blown when like our person who was our campaign manager said, this is what we're going to raise. I was like, well, what do we need that for? This seems ridiculous. So I think for those people on the call that might not have been part of a campaign before, just knowing to help fund these campaigns, even $5, we need that. So I think thanks for bringing up the funding piece.
Yeah. So I didn't realize
And
self-funded
lastly,
700
Teresa, would we be able to put like maybe a campaign? Do you have a campaign manager or anybody identified right now that's sort of helping you?
I do. I'm working with, well, Kelly Muscarello is helping me with finance, and we're doing call time, and I'm loving call time. I know most candidates don't, but I'm finding
Great. Well, maybe we could put her contact information in our newsletter as well, in case somebody wants to host a meet and greet or a little fundraiser for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Christy Chavez. And so the best way to contact us is press@drreesforarizona.com. I'll put it in the chat. And it's also my website. And on that website is the link for eQual and also a donation button.
Wonderful. Good. We like you already. We would have judged you if you got off here and hadn't asked for some donations.
Yes.
Man. I'll say, I don't know if some people on here may not know, or going to be listening to the recording may not know that our own school board member, Corinne Werner, who de-seated Christine Marsh and is now our state senator, and sits on the education board, though she has 0 degrees in education or any other degrees, sits on the education board. She has been tight with Horn over the last year. Where Horn was, there she was, whether it was be right there on camera with him or beside him, behind him, she is super tight with Horn. So all things that Horn stands for, you can imagine how frightening it is for us here in Scottsdale to know that she is in alignment with that. In fact, she was the only school board member that was present when he announced that PragerU is now officially, what is it? It's officially that it can be used or it's accepted in our schools. They started pushing PragerU. Really highly suggest people Google what PragerU is and see some of their curriculum. It is atrocious, absolutely atrocious. And the fact that she wants to get that in our schools scares me to death. Like that is, if that actually happened, like, I don't even know, that would be like Shay's moving out of state. I can't have my kids learning what they want.
If my kids say they had a video at school, I'm like, who was the producer of the video? And they're like, it was just about like, I don't know, the 50 states or something. And I'm like, okay.
It's pretty bad, but well, Dr. Ruiz, we are so grateful that you made some time for us and you jumped on here, and we know that you have many speaking engagements already lined up for today, and so we thank you and we will let you go, and appreciate
we're going to see you again.
Yes.
Thank you. And I look forward to meeting all of you in person, and I appreciate all of your support. This is a fight, and we're all going to come together, and we're going to protect public education. We're going to protect our children's future. We're not going to sit still, and it's up to us. It's up to the women. Make this happen.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Maybe we'll see you at our happy hour.
I would love to.
Okay. April 3rd, happy hour here in Scottsdale. Okay.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
I have lots of great things to say about Miss Beth Lewis. At the same time, you are so tight with her. You guys are besties, so I'm going to let you do it. You get the honors.
Beth doesn't even need like a bio intro thing. Let's just say she's the queen of public education in Arizona, period. If you have advocated for public schools in any meaningful, serious, holistic way, you have run across Beth Lewis and her little co-pilot, Jen Senator, she's our area rep in Scottsdale. So we have big hearts for Jen. Thank you for bringing Jen into our lives, Beth. Beth was just, I wouldn't say just a teacher. You were a teacher, lady. And then suddenly you were like, oh my gosh, we got to do something. Like the powers that be, the organizations that were trying to promote public education and work on behalf of teachers and students and our economy and so and so and so. Beth saw that there was a hole and that there needed to be a different voice that was really coming out into play, that was organizing people, getting people involved, and really informing everyone about what was at stake and the dangers that lurked. And that's how I would describe you, is that I was a public school fan, and then I became absolutely full in ride or die public school advocate once I came into Beth's world. And what you've achieved is really quite remarkable, considering the fact that for so long you guys had no money. You're mostly a volunteer effort, and it's just for the love of children and schools and teachers that drives this beast, which is important. Those of you that are not on Twitter don't know that, like, important education people across the nation, people who focus on education and politics, they all know who Beth Lewis is.
You're making me blush, Jennifer.
It just occurred to me that Jennifer is my mentor in the world of saving public schools, and Beth is your mentor. We're just like a little family of mentors here.
A little family.
That's how it all works, though, right? That's why we're here, is so that everybody can inspire each other.
100%.
So happy to be here. Thank you.
So Beth, I, as you know, I'm always the doom and gloom girl, and it's all dead and it's all dying and everything's terrible. And you, I think a main part of the reason why you were able to get people to keep going out and canvassing and signing the petitions and getting stuff done is because you are relentlessly positive that you believe that, by God, your force of will is going to make things better. And you have done some very significant things. Tell us just, first of all, what are we working on right now, and why is there room to hope?
Yeah. Okay. So I am a
Oh, that's
relentless
broad.
optimist.
Sorry.
I'm mostly Leslie Knope with a side dose of April Ludgate back here that I only let out with my close ones.
That makes me Ron Swanson. I don't know.
I'm not a libertarian, but everything else he says is just like gold. Yeah. My husband is. Yeah. Save Our Schools Arizona, like you said, I mean, we worked completely volunteer for years and years. And the only reason Save Our Schools Arizona came about was because a bunch of us, educators, parents, just community members, were starting to go down to the state legislature in 2017, right after Trump was elected. So it's a kind of a full circle moment. As terrible as it is, people are doing the same thing, right? They're coming out of the woodworks. They're looking for what's going on. How do I get informed? Where can I point my fingers to the biggest problem that I can actually have an impact on? And how do I just jump in and work on that? And I think that's why you're all here. So right now, I'll set the context, like everything that's happening at the national level with Project 2025, this administration, dismantling Department of Ed, like we're the playbook. Mm-hmm. It's been starting in Arizona for decades, right?
People don't realize that
already.
I think when Jennifer first, I remember where I was. I was in my car outside of my house, looking at my garage. The day that Jennifer opened my eyes, pulled the curtains back and was like, "This is what? Oh, you didn't know that they're actually attacking and trying to dismantle public education."
The ground zero. This was the first state that adopted charter schools. This was the first state that allowed people to make money off of our public tax dollars. Yeah. This is the first state, all of the first.
And I thought she was conspiracy theorist. I was like, she's kind of great. Of course, I'm 100% and fully informed now. And, but yeah, I'm sure that, A lot of people don't, maybe, is there still a percentage of people that still don't know that that's what's actually happening
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to kind of temper yourself, right? Like there are many times when I go in front of like regular folks and it's like, oh man, I do not want to sound like a crazy lady. Like I know the reality, but I need to scale it back a little bit because, it does sound like you've got a tinfoil hat on. Everything bad that's happening basically started in Arizona or Florida when it comes to education. And my friends in Florida are far, far worse, I have to say, because they've got DeSantis and a legislative majority that's passing all of the worst legislation. So my poor friends in Florida that are fighting for public schools, like that gives me some positivity right there that we have Hobbs, we're holding the line on a lot of this bad stuff. So what we do, I mean, we are in every community, in every county across Arizona. We are truly statewide. So what we do in each area looks really different, right? Like what we're doing in Kingman is inherently going to be super different than what we're doing in Scottsdale. But what we mostly do is advocate and help people understand what's going on. So we inform folks in a really community-driven way. Jen does coffee chats. We go to school board meetings. We advocate. We go down to the Capitol. We testify if we need to. We love to like lift up people's stories. Now we're advocating to Congress, which is a whole new ball of wax for us. We'd always been focused on the state. And a lot of it is door knocking, direct voter contact, and just talking to neighbors. So there's a role for everybody to play. And Jen, to your point, like the cerebral part of me is like, yes, everything is bad. We are under attack. This is going to be hard. But the rest of me is like, well, but we're fighting back. The whole nation is watching us. We're clearly effective. And there are so many people in the state that care so deeply about public education that they're overreaching. They're trying to burn it down, and people aren't going to stand for that. So I think our biggest job is just to really get out to our friends and our neighbors, start with them where you can, and help them to see where they're willing to listen, how important public schools are, and what they can do to help. Because everybody can do something.
So SOS did a lot of heavy lifting, like helping through your network. We got volunteers that helped with our school board raise. You guys have used a lot of volunteer hours and stuff to do a lot of hard work you guys do phone banks, you do text banks, you do a lot of canvassing for the legislative races. Because as we all know, if we don't flip the legislature, we don't get more money for schools. How can like a new person, I'm brand new, I've never really done anything political, I've never been super involved in a larger way other than like volunteering at my kid's school. How do I get to start an involvement with SOS so that I can find ways in which I can be more hands-on?
So Jen, if you could put the link in the chat to sign up for our local community action team. We have community action teams all across the state. Jen is the lead of our Northeast Valley, so Scottsdale, Paradise Valley area. And then I would also say, it sounds simple, but social media really does matter. I know there's a lot of back and forth on that, but like it is an act of courage for you to share something that feels political. And I know a lot of folks have really struggled with that over the years. And so, maybe look through Save Our Schools content and see if there's something that resonates. Maybe it's the voucher drain in the Scottsdale district that you want to share so your friends and neighbors know, or maybe it's just a statement about like the Department of Education. We just put out a blog on our C3 side, nothing political. It just says, what is the Department of Education? What does it do? What does it not do? Right? So dip your toe in that water a little bit. And, I'm not saying like you got to take over your feed with politics, but if we don't
But you
talk about it, we're going to lose our schools. We're going to lose everything we hold dear if we don't just start.
The article about the Prenda, owner charter school that just walked off with 13 million of our dollars after he did so badly educating children that his school got taken away because he didn't educate anybody.
Yeah, that's Primavera. And I guarantee you, okay, I'm just going to say it right now. I bet you within the year it becomes a private school and they start taking vouchers. Said it first. My crystal ball is clear.
Well,
That
happened with that other school that recently got shut down, right? Like there were no requirements for them. to become a private school and take vouchers instead.
Absolutely. So a couple of questions. What do you see, since you pay even more attention than I do, with the dismantling of the federal Department of Education? Obviously, nobody can say exactly what's going to happen. We don't know how everything's going to go. I don't even think they know how everything's going to go. What do you see as the biggest pitfalls, things that we need to be watching out for?
So I'd say first, legal protections, which sounds wonky, but if you have a kid on an IEP 504 plan, if you know anybody whose kid has disabilities, if they are firing people en masse, you're not going to be able to have those protections, right? There aren't enough people working to oversee those things. There's also, if they totally dismantle the program, then those protections will still exist on paper, but functionally they mean nothing if nobody's overseeing them. Right now, if my kid is on an IEP and I think the school's not serving my kid's minutes, I have recourse, right? I don't have to pay for a lawyer. I can go to the Department of Education and they can come in and say, you know what, district, school, you got to do XYZ. If there's no Department of Ed, that doesn't exist. And there's no body that exists to do that in the state. It's not like the State Board of Education is equipped to do that. The Department of Ed is not equipped to do that. These are really important functions. Trump announced last Friday that he was going to move all special education under the Department of Health and Human Services, which is run by RFK Jr., and then today announced a massive slashing of 10,000 positions within the Department of Health and Human Services. So if you care about kids with disabilities, you should be really worried. There's also a ton of funding. And they're talking about sending federal funding back to states as block grants. The key thing to understand, a block grant, by definition, is discretionary funding. So if 300 million is allocated to Title I funding and 300 million is allocated to special education funding in Arizona, and they send that to the legislature and the legislature decides to say, we're going to let them keep some of that, but we're going to maybe send half of that away to private school vouchers, there is nothing stopping them.
Private religious schools. Let's just point that out also.
Or homeschool.
How many or homeschools? That kills me. That kills me when I have met personally multiple women who are homeschooling 4 or 5 children, ages from 6 to 17. And I'm like, and my taxpayer dollars are paying to assume that you are educating. You have no background in education. You have a background in selling, you also sell essential oils. And this is you're educating all the, so that kills me. But can we speak to how many
at it? The problem is we don't know because we have a system set up with zero accountability. Nobody else has to test.
And they get $7,000 per child. So 5 kids, that's $35,000 a year. They get to keep their kid home.
By the way, if you don't use it on education, you can save it to help pay for their college. So your tax dollars could be going to pay somebody else's college tuition, which, hey, I think college tuition should be as free as possible and make it accessible. But the same group of people who said, oh, you can't possibly help repay loans for people are the same group of people that are making this big giveaway grift happen. And it blows my mind that people can't see that.
So how many Title I schools do we have in Scottsdale? Anybody on here know that?
We have 39% of our student body is deemed Title I.
Which is a low income.
1 high school, 2 middle schools, and I think 4 or 5 elementary schools.
So
we've also got funding for school lunches. I mean, don't forget that. We've got funding for programs like 21st Century Grants. If you're an educator, you know exactly what that is. It's all of the after school tutoring that comes in October through April, which allows us to, keep kids, feed them, bus them, and teach them after school. That's a massive loss if we lose that. And then funding for Native students. And I know Scottsdale area has a lot of Title I kids, a lot of kids on IEPs, and a lot of Native American students. So SUSD, PVE stand to lose a lot.
Yeah. Not to mention some people, are in a certain part of town that isn't Title I, and they think, oh, it's not going to affect me that much. Well, when your district loses all those funds, guess where they got to pull from? The funds that were helping your school achieve all the things they wanted to achieve. That funding, trust me, it affects It's going to affect you. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel it in the next year for sure, if not sooner.
Yeah, I mean, if it's returned to the states, if that funding is cut, or if it's functionally unable to get to our schools because nobody is manning the shop, right? And really important to note that it's about 20% of our funding, which is not true in every state. So you'll see data across the states where it's like, oh, it's only 5% of our funding, so we don't care as much. In Arizona, they kick in 19% of our funding.
But that's because we're already super unfunded. So that makes
Yes.
that percentage higher because we're 48th lowest funded. We toggle between like 48th and 50th lowest funded
Yep.
at the state level across the nation.
Yep.
So
So Arizona
of course
has
it makes
so
it a
much
higher
to lose.
percentage.
Yeah. So I know that this is kind of like in the weeds and it's not like a huge percentage of our K-12 population, but there's something I simply can't understand. And since I've got a powerful person here, I'm going to say it in front of other people so I have witnesses to see if you can get something moving on this. You can take voucher money, our tax dollars, with zero accountability, no testing, no anything, no WellCare check on the child. And meanwhile, we know that the highest per capita, so not the highest number of people, but of a community size, the highest per capita number of these vouchers are in Colorado City, which is in the northern part of our state. So this is the area where the FLDS polygamist families got in a lot of trouble. The Warren Jeffs, look it up. It's kind of fascinating. But I have this real concern about this group of kids that this guy, this 53-year-old's got 6 wives. I don't know how many kids. They're now collecting voucher money. And I have no idea if that 12-year-old girl is getting an education. And I keep looking in the paper to see if anybody has gone up there and checked anything, but it is a phenomenal amount of money. And I just, for a group of people that are constantly talking about child trafficking and protect the children, why is there absolutely nobody going up to check on whether or not these children are protected?
Do you have the answer for that, Beth?
I don't. I mean, I think somebody said it in the chat. This is all, it's not just a lack of oversight. It's not just, right? Like everything you pointed out is exactly right. But we know that vouchers are a tool of white supremacy and they're a tool of Christian nationalism. They are a bullet train to Christian nationalism.
Some
And
people
so,
don't quite understand that. So can you help explain
Yes.
that? Because when I said that got back to that tin hat thing that people are like,
Yeah.
So explain how.
I figured I could in this group, but I'm
Yes,
gonna
you
walk
can.
it back.
Well, there's a lot more people that watch the recordings and that aren't as engaged as probably the people
great.
on here. So
Yeah, I mean, so the folks that have been pushing vouchers in Arizona for decades, people like Betsy DeVos, are, very, very close to what's called the family, right? Like the really well-off folks who are pushing Christian nationalism in many forms across the US. And they're also the people who bankrolled folks like Trump, who, clearly, I mean, we're watching everything go down, right? Like with attacks on DEI, attacks on LGBTQ folks. Like there is a clear mandate coming from people with power, money, influence, who would prefer for our country to be run by an aristocracy, right? An oligarchy of folks that are not people of color, that are probably Christian. Betsy DeVos herself said that the reason she tries to advance vouchers is because she wants to evangelize families and she wants to advance God's kingdom. We know that there is a huge
That's a quote, y'all. That's not
that's direct. Yeah, right. And she spent millions and millions and millions of dollars in Arizona to push vouchers. If you want to have a Christian nation, a white Christian nation, then you need to indoctrinate your next voter base.
Mhm.
And the best way to do that, I'm sorry, is not to try and indoctrinate college kids. They know better. It's to go to your first graders. Because they're going to be voters in 9 years.
I'm like PragerU, right? Starting in kindergarten.
And
Absolutely.
there are plenty, there are plenty of great religious schools. Like, this is not an attack on religion. There are wonderful Catholic schools that do great things, right? But the people that are pushing vouchers, not necessarily the people that benefit from them, the people pushing them would love to see a white Christian nation. And I will die on that hill, put it on my tombstone, print it on every newspaper headline with my name next to it. That is what's happening.
Yes.
So we know, for years now, I've been watching the dismantling of public education in Arizona and the death by 1,000 cuts. Craig Harris, who's now back, crazy, but he'd done a series of investigative pieces starting in, 2016, 2015, 2010. We've all seen how it's all played out and stuff, and yet the average person on the street still doesn't understand that if we do not stop this, public education as we know it in this state is gone in the next decade. How do we get people to understand, even if you don't care about somebody else's 6-year-old kid and their future, how do we get people to understand how this is going to negatively impact them economically, their property values, how crime is going to rise, how everything is going to get worse because we don't prioritize educating kids or even just let them be educated? How do we proselytize that? How do we message that? How do we reach more people?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? You go knock a door and somebody says, "Oh, well, I'm glad this person's running for school board, but I don't have kids in school." Like, as if they aren't, like, they don't.
Yeah.
But, and I always just say, "Well, oh, well, thank you, sir. You're a taxpayer, so I know that it really matters how your funds are spent." And Mike Sharkey is going to do a really good job with your tax dollars, and as long
They
as you
don't
have
care.
kind of mom energy, they'll kind of listen. But you're right. People are self-interested, right? Not all people, but in general, people want to know, how does this benefit me? So I think saying, well, we really want to have well-educated dentists. We want to have great accountants. Like, we're not getting any younger. I'm not my own accountant. In 20 years, I'd like to have somebody who's really smart, who can take care of these things for me. That's not going to happen if we don't have great public schools. So
I'd like to
that's
make the
one
point.
way.
I ran the last 2 overrides, and we did a poll, and of course found out that when we asked these people these questions, do you care about this? Do you care about this? No, 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 no. When we said, well, what about if this affects your property values? What? It's gonna cost me money? What? It affect my property values? That's what made them wake up. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
when you lose funding, when schools start having to, supplement their Title I schools because we lose that funding, et cetera, what ends up happening is we lose things like the arts. We lose things like music. We make so much more. And as you chip that away, you can't have an A+ school. You can't have a B school in your neighborhood. Those are going to be moved down to C schools. And yes, that absolutely affects your property values right there. That affects your property values.
And I think people know it in their hearts. Like, I do. I don't think it takes a long time to get them there. And you'll hear people say, like, well, it's not just that they don't care. They'll say, like, well, we need to try something different because what we're doing right now isn't working. And I think it's really important to remind them, well, what we're doing right now is we're defunding schools and not providing kids and educators what they need to be successful. So you're right. What we're doing right now is not working. But people don't always love for everything to be about funding. So I think it's really important
like
to paint
that.
a picture.
I think that's a terrible answer, Beth, and let me tell you why. I think
Yeah.
we're doing a great job. We are lowest in funding. We have historically, for at least the last 30 years, we by and large have a government that absolutely is against us in every way, shape, or form. And we have an older population. We have an aging population. We have one of the
Scottsdale specifically.
No, I'm talking about the state of Arizona. We have one of the highest child poverty rates in the nation. We have one of the highest rates of English as a second language in the nation. We have the highest of parents who don't speak English in the nation. And so when I look at all of those things, you would think that Arizona, as when we're tested, we would be dead last.
Sure.
And guess what? We're not, which tells me that our teachers in our schools are actually doing a phenomenal job. And with the resources that we have and the student population that's coming to our schools.
But that's not the narrative that Beth and her team are, when they go to the door, so many people.
Yeah. You got to
the
meet people
narrative
where
they're
they are.
getting is our
And
schools are failing.
I'm going to push back on that because yes, everything you said is true.
Yeah.
However, one of the biggest problems is that everybody in education has been bleeding privately for years. Our soups don't speak up, our school board members don't speak up, and that is the problem. Our people in our community think that we're doing fine, and we're not. As somebody who's been in the classroom, like, we're not okay. Nobody's okay. And so if we're asked to do too much with too little, and that increases every single year, I think at a certain point we have to go to doors and say yes, like both and. Yes, our teachers right here at this school are doing amazing. They're doing incredible things for kids, but our state
They are
is
on the breaking
failing.
point.
Yeah. And as schools start to close, I think this is going to become more and more of a snowball where people are going to start blaming the district for mismanagement of funds. And we need to get people to realize it's not mismanagement of funds. There are no funds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
So this may be wow. So I started off my advocacy in public schools. You volunteer in the classroom, and the next thing you know, you're volunteering at the school and then the district, and then suddenly you're trying to run somebody for the state legislature to give more money to your district. And this is how you become me and bitter and sad. How I regret the time that I spent volunteering at my kids' school. I loved their school. I still am friends with their teachers. I feel like I am part of the problem. I counted up over the years in which I was the fundraising chair at 3 different schools. I raised over $1 million for 3 schools.
Wow. Yes, you did.
So, and I know this for a fact, and I worked all the time. And toots to me that we had 2 laminating machines and a golf cart for our maintenance person to drive around in, and a shade structure for the bikes, and Chromebooks when the district wouldn't buy them. But I think what I did was that I told the parents in my area, we don't have a need. We are not suffering. We don't have a problem, because I was working with other women my tail off to fund those needs.
The teachers, the kinder aids, things that people, yes.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Like almost the slightly more affluent areas, which also happen to be the much higher percentage voting areas. So they really make a difference in terms of who we're electing. The parents in the volunteer base are really propping up these schools in a way that's false. And I think it's giving people this false calm and like, there's no emergency. My kid's school is great.
I feel the same way about the overrides. It's this like this necessary evil that, again, the overrides, many of you know, but for those who are going to watch the recording, the overrides are a way to ask taxpayers to help fund our schools because we are so deeply underfunded at the state level. Well, Scottsdale passes it, but
we know that
guess who
more
doesn't?
wealthy communities, the wealthier communities, the more likely they are to pass bonds and overrides compared to poorer districts. Tucson Unified School District just passed one after 25, 30 years. And it's a very progressive, blue, pro-education area. That is, it's inequitable. It's the one thing we're not supposed to be doing in public education, which is to not be the same and giving everybody the same break. And do you think that that's been part of our problem in Arizona, is that as the state pulled back, a group of activists and teachers and people filled in those gaps so that we didn't let the average voter know how bad it was?
We're putting the Band-Aid on it. We constantly keep putting the Band-Aid on it, but the Band-Aid is also only going on typically the wealthy white communities.
Right. And, we all do it because we love kids, but I was PTO president at my kids' school, which is really low income. It's where I taught, very, very Title I in Tempe. And, it was a completely different story. And I'd meet with other PTA leaders or whatever from across districts and even within the district, and the disparities were so shocking. Like, I had this PTO mom who, her school was probably like 5 or 10 minutes from my school, but totally different SES levels for the neighborhoods. And she was telling me like, oh yeah, we raised like $1 million doing this, and you should just do this. And I'm like, I can't ask my families for $1. Like, we can't, our families like can't, there's nothing. And like, yes, we can go out to businesses, but that's so much more work. And like, you want to involve the kids, but I mean, raising money, like we managed to get to from zero to $2,000. And that was like an incredible accomplishment. And we were able to get like mini grants for teachers, like $50 at a time. So then when I talked to people in Scottsdale who were like, oh yeah, we're funding reading aids for kids, like it it is, I'm so happy for those kids, but it's also like you're looking at your kids, your students, and realizing that they don't have access to any of those opportunities, and it's infuriating.
And that's why people in Scottsdale continue to vote for people in the legislature who underfund schools because they're like, we're fine. We feel good. We're good. We're good.
And you don't want to let it all burn, right? Because these are kids. They only have one shot. I mean, sometimes, Jennifer does, but I'm kidding. We don't.
And then one of you reminds me, they're only 6 years old. This is like a
Right.
sixth of their life this year. And I'm like, let them go without PE. Let's let it hurt. Like, I'm
Yeah.
Not to help to hurt the child, but so that the parents understand this is,
Yes.
this is what we're up against. I don't know
Yes.
that I'm going to run another override. I'm not sure. And that's a killer to tell my kids, yeah, you're probably going to not have PE. You're not going to have music. You're not going to have art, but we can't, but look at the voters. Voters put in Warner, and that's what we get, guys. This is called a fuck around and find out time, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in
Thought a
Chandler.
vote
We
got
didn't
our
pass
way,
our
there
bond.
wouldn't be
And the
override. your bond.
superintendent went out to all of our families this last year after the election. He's like, well, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically nicely said the community didn't pass this bond. So now we're coming up incredibly short. We're going to have to make horrific cuts. We're not able to fund any security improvements or any campus improvements. We're really sorry. And you're probably going to see programs cut too. And it's just, I mean, he was just matter of fact about it, but people don't make the connections. I do think we need to bleed more publicly. I think we need to tell our stories and make a big deal about them. And, the road to fascism is paved with people telling you that you're overreacting. Like, let's overreact. Let's tell them what's going on, because it's not indoctrination. It's not woke math. It's incredibly inadequate resources that are robbing our kids of any sort of equivalent future to their peers in other states. And it's fucking unfair, and it's awful, and it's robbing our kids, and it gets me out of bed every day. But I really need more people to join us, because my gosh, we are so close to losing it all. I'm not gonna let it happen, but I need you.
Beth, give us just like, because you know me, I don't do numbers and math. Give us like some basics of like where we have lost support funding, anything over like, the last 3 decades or so. Like, I know that's a heavy lift, but like just some of the big ones, we've got vouchers and sort of an estimate of like what that's taken out in today's dollars out of our schools. I know that one of the things I'd learned was that it was something, and I'm going to make up the number because you guys know I don't remember numbers, like 2003 or 2005 was the last time we got like a bump in what school districts are given to pay their utility bills. So it's like you were given $200 a month to pay your electric bill, and it's still the same today, even though utility rates have risen. There's a lot of things like that along the way. What are some of those big chunks that you know of that we're underfunded in, or that has subtracted?
So big picture, we were like 32nd, 35th in the pack in terms of funding our students in the late 80s, early 90s. Okay. So back in the day, we were middle of the pack. We were doing okay. Simonton came in, new type of economy where we're slashing taxes, right? We don't have the revenue we used to have. Started to go down, 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 down until 2008, Great Recession. We were 47th in the country. Then our legislature was like, oh, dang, we don't have any revenue. We don't have any money. We have to slash everything. Our cuts to K-12 were some of the worst in the nation, on top of the fact we were already 47th. And they've never caught back up in terms of, there's an inflationary requirement. You got to meet that 2% every year, which, I'm sorry, inflation was 6%, 7% last year.
Yeah.
Like 2% is not cutting it. After Red for Ed, it's been a bucket of false promises year after year. But what they did do in 2022 is they said, well, you know, we never made good. We've got a lawsuit saying that we're $3 billion in the hole on school facilities, you know, since the year 2000. So we're like billions of dollars behind. Let's pass $1 billion voucher program. We don't have money for public schools, which serve 95% of our kids, but somehow they scraped in the couch cushions and they found money for $1 billion voucher program.
It's a great talking point right there, just to point out to people. When somebody says, why do school districts are mismanaging funds, why do they have to keep going for bonds? Since the year 2000, our districts are running at a $3 billion deficit that our state should have been giving districts to help repair the roof, replace the old aging AC system, whatever. And because the state is not paying that, what was promised, what was supposed to be due to them, the school districts have to go out over and over and over again for these bonds so that they can repair these things and do that general maintenance and the new building that doesn't have asbestos and lead paint and whatever else that the state should have been doing.
Yep.
I think that's
And
also
add
true.
on to
When
that
people go-
everything else.
when we speak that fact that we're the 47th, 48th, 49th lowest funded, and when people kind of give me pushback of like, why do you think that the state wants to destroy schools? What would make you think that? How do you end up at the bottom of the barrel on accident? Everything is done intentionally. How do you try to pass some many bills and have other bills, you know, working through the legislature that really focus on demands and restrictions for public schools that are very costly, but you don't put those same requests and demands on the private schools that are also taxpayer. Like there's so many different things. I hate to do this, but
I know we're over. I
Fine.
wanted everybody to meet Beth, and if you can scroll through the pictures to see Jen Senator, especially if you're in the Scottsdale area. If you don't know her, you will, because she's a delight. And I really hope, first of all, they're a great group of gals. They're fun to be with. They're educated. They're understanding. They will explain anything to you. They obviously put up with a lot of different personalities. And if you want to do something kind of politically, if you want to go down to the Capitol for the first time and see what that's like to sit in a gallery and do some of that stuff, I highly recommend it. We'll be putting it in our newsletter. Their contact information, you can follow them on social media. They have a fantastic newsletter that they send out. I love to follow them on Twitter, especially Beth. Beth can get a little fun on Twitter. This is a group that if you're looking for someone to get super involved in education issues and have a buddy to go do it with, I highly recommend getting involved with SOS. Haven't met anybody through SOS that I haven't adored.
So I'm not going to get the newsletter out in the next 24, 48 hours. So go to our social media pages. You guys, part of your activism is to spread the word about this group. You need to share the newsletters, share the social media posts. You know, make sure you're listening to the other ones and the other recordings and share those with your friends. And so in our social media, I will put information about their gala happening here on Saturday. It's $100 per person or $50 per educator, correct? It's going to be a great time. So if you want to come join, have cocktails, there's some cocktail hour and then presenters and anything. I know that we have some other action points, but we are running out of time here. And
Dude, if you don't want to donate to individual candidates because you don't feel like you know enough, this is a group that you can donate to, and you know that they are going to be supporting all of the right candidates that are going to support education, and the amount of work that they did rivals PACs that gave millions. So part of the reason why we maintain a school board majority in SUSD is because of their support of us. So
100%. Okay, one last thing. Also, this Monday, you know, we've been doing the Schweikert rallies outside of Schweikert's office every single Monday. This one is going to be the biggest of all of them. They've actually been growing. We thought, oh, they're going to get smaller and smaller, like dwindle. No, they've been growing. So consistency is key. But this one, we're really shooting for national media. It's the Tesla takedown. This is just beyond perfection. Schweikert's office is a block and a half from the Tesla dealership. You can see it. And we absolutely can make a line from his office all the way down to Tesla. We want you there 9 o'clock Again, check our social media so you can see the further details. 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock. Come out and join us this Monday. Okay. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next time. We have Jeannie Castine from Secular AZ on in 2 weeks. I know you guys are big fans of Jeannie Castine's as well. So thank you again, all of you. Appreciate you. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, ladies.
Saturday.
Take care.